The story of the Ark of the Covenant is one of the strangest and most violent in the Old Testament, but most people only know the romanticized movie version. The reality described in religious texts is quite different. This object was not just a sacred symbol kept in a temple for people to pray to from a distance. The Ark killed whoever touched it. It killed whoever looked inside it. It killed entire cities just by being near them. And most importantly, it was used as a weapon of war by the Hebrews against their enemies. It was not a peaceful relic. It was an instrument of destruction that worked through absolute fear. According to the biblical description, the Ark was a box made of acacia wood covered in gold inside and out, about 1 meter long by 60 centimeters wide and tall. On top of it were 2 angel figures with open wings, and between those wings was what they called a mercy seat, the place where God literally manifested himself to speak with Moses. Inside the Ark were the tablets of the 10 Commandments, a piece of the manna that fed the Hebrews in the desert, and Aaron's rod that miraculously flowered. But the contents did not matter as much as what the Ark represented. It was God's portable throne on earth. And God, in this Old Testament period, was not described as a figure of unconditional love. He was described as pure force, absolute justice, and instant destruction for whoever disobeyed. The first account of death because of the Ark happened while still in the desert. 2 of Aaron's sons, who were priests, decided to perform a ritual the wrong way. They offered strange fire before the Lord, something that had not been commanded. The response was immediate. Fire came out from inside the Ark and consumed them instantly. They died burned in front of everyone. There was no warning, no second chance. The message was clear. Nobody messes with this object without following the exact rules. And the rules were many. Only the Levites and the family of Kohath could carry the Ark, and even then using wooden poles that passed through rings on the sides. Nobody could directly touch the gold. Nobody could look inside. Nobody could approach without being ritually purified. The punishment for any mistake was always the same: instant death. When the Hebrews finally left the desert and began to conquer Canaan, the Ark went ahead of the armies. It was not a matter of carrying a religious symbol to give courage to the soldiers. The Ark literally opened the way. The most famous account is the fall of Jericho. The Hebrews marched around the city for 7 days carrying the Ark, and on the 7th day the walls collapsed. It was not a normal military siege. There was no battering ram, no ladders, no negotiation. The city simply fell because the Ark was there. After that, all inhabitants were killed, including women and children. The order was total extermination, and this was repeated in several cities. The Ark was not used to convert enemies or to show God's glory peacefully. It was used to destroy whoever was in the way. The most detailed case of death because of the Ark happened years later, when the Philistines captured the object in a battle. The Hebrews had lost a fight, so they decided to get the Ark from the tabernacle and bring it to the battlefield, thinking this would guarantee victory. It did not work. The Philistines won again and took the Ark as a war trophy. It was the biggest mistake they made. They placed the Ark in the temple of the god Dagon in Ashdod. The next day, the statue of Dagon was fallen face down on the ground before the Arkansas. They raised the statue. The next day it was fallen again, but this time with its head and hands cut off. And then the deaths began. The inhabitants of Ashdod were struck by a plague. The biblical text speaks of tumors, which many scholars interpret as bubonic plague, or something similar. People began to die en masse. The Philistines panicked and decided to send the Ark to another city. They sent it to Gath. The same thing happened. Plague, tumors, deaths. They sent it to Ekron. Same story. In 7 months, the Ark killed thousands of Philistines just by being present in their cities. It did not need Hebrew army, did not need battle. The Ark alone functioned as a biological weapon. The Philistines finally returned the Ark to the Hebrews, along with gold offerings in the shape of tumors and rats, in a desperate attempt to appease the wrath that object carried. But the story did not end well even for the Hebrews. When the Ark returned, it was placed in a city called Beth Shemesh. The people were so happy with the return that they made a great celebration. And then some men, probably out of curiosity or thinking they had the right since they were Hebrews, looked inside the Arkansas. The result was the death of 50,000 men, according to one version of the text. Other versions speak of 70 men. Either way, it was a massacre. And the reason given was simple. They looked inside Arkansas. Nothing more. They did not try to steal it. They did not intentionally profane it. They just looked, and that was enough for mass execution. This event is important because it shows that the Ark did not distinguish between friend and enemy when rules were broken. It killed Philistines who captured it and killed Hebrews who touched it wrong. It was a neutral force in the sense that it worked by absolute principles, not by tribal loyalty. And this is exactly what made it so efficient as a psychological weapon. If even your own people fear touching the object, imagine the terror it caused in enemies. The Ark did not need to be used directly in combat to function. Its simple presence altered the behavior of everyone around it. There is another famous account that makes this even clearer. When King David was bringing the Ark to Jerusalem, it was being transported on a cart pulled by oxen. At a certain moment, the oxen stumbled and the Ark began to sway. A man named Uzzah, who was accompanying the transport, instinctively extended his hand to hold the Ark and prevent it from falling. Seems like a noble gesture, right? He was trying to protect the sacred object, but God killed him on the spot, struck down. The text says that divine wrath ignited against Uzzah because he had touched the Arkansas. David was so terrified that he refused to bring the Ark to Jerusalem that day. He left it at the house of a man named Obed-Edom for 3 months, and only when he saw that nothing bad happened to that family did he decide to get the Ark again, this time following all protocols precisely. Now, the question that remains is, why would a religious object function as a weapon? The answer lies in the type of power the Ark represented. It was not direct physical power like a sword or a spear. It was power through absolute fear. The Ark established a territory of death around itself. Anyone who entered this territory without permission died. This created a mobile exclusion zone. Wherever the Ark went, people had to either completely obey the rules or die. There was no middle ground. This type of weapon is much more effective than you might imagine. A sword you can disarm. An army you can defeat. But how do you fight something that kills by the simple fact of existing? How do you defeat an object that does not need soldiers to protect it because it itself executes whoever approaches? The Ark transformed any place into controlled territory. It was as if it carried its own physical law. Here the normal rules do not apply. Here you obey or die. And this brings us to an interesting point about how human control works. The Ark of the Covenant was efficient precisely because it gave no choice. There was no way to negotiate with it. No way to find a loophole. It was a system of absolute rules with instant punishment. And when you create that, you create something people cannot ignore. It becomes impossible to simply forget that it exists. The Ark was always present in everyone's mind, even when it was stored away, because fear does not need constant physical presence to function. It just needs the certainty that punishment will happen if you make a mistake. Think about how this manifests today. We no longer have golden arks that kill whoever touches them, but we have control systems that work the same way. Security cameras, for example. You know you are being filmed almost anywhere. You do not see who is watching. You do not know if anyone is paying attention at that specific moment. But the simple possibility of being observed changes your behavior. You do not steal in the store because you know there are cameras. You do not do certain things in public because you know you might be recorded and exposed on the internet. The principle is the same as the Ark, invisible presence that punishes disobedience. The difference is that the Ark had an advantage that modern systems are still trying to achieve. The punishment was immediate and visible. When someone died from touching the Ark, everyone saw it. There was no trial, no appeal, no time to explain. Cause and effect were directly connected. Today, punishment can take time. You can do something wrong, be filmed, and only be punished months or years later when a video goes viral or when someone hands the footage to police. This delay weakens the psychological effect. People take risks because they think they can escape. With the Ark, there was no escape. If you touched it, you died. Right there, in front of everyone. This engraved a lesson in a way that no later punishment can. Another important aspect is that the Ark was not controlled by humans in the practical sense. The priest could transport it, could perform rituals near it, but could not turn its power on and off. They could not decide who would die and who would survive. This took the Ark out of the sphere of common human politics. It was not a tool that a king could use to kill his personal enemies. It was a force that followed its own rules, and these rules were above any human authority. Even the king had to obey. Even the high priest had to follow the exact protocols. Nobody was immune. This created a different type of fear. It was not fear of a tyrant who can change his mind, who can be deposed, who can die and be replaced. It was fear of a natural law, like the fear of falling from a tall building. You do not negotiate with gravity. You do not expect it to have a bad day and decide to spare you. It will kill you if you jump every time, without exception. The Ark worked like that. It did not have good days or bad days. Touched it wrong, died. Simple as that. When you compare this to modern weapons, you realize that current technology tries to replicate exactly this characteristic. Landmines, for example. You step on it, it explodes. It does not matter who you are. It does not matter if it was an accident. It does not matter if you are a child or an adult. The mind does not judge. It just executes its function. And this is precisely why landmines are considered particularly cruel weapons. They do not distinguish between soldier and civilian. They kill blindly. The Ark had the same quality. It was indiscriminate within its rules. If you broke the rule, you died. Your intention did not matter. Your social position did not matter. Nothing mattered except the act itself. But there is a deeper layer to all this. The Ark was not just a physical weapon that killed people. It was a weapon that controlled meaning. It defined what was sacred and what was profane. It established a boundary between life and death based on criteria that were not negotiable. And when you control meaning, you control everything. Because people do not live only according to physical threats. They live according to systems of meaning. What is allowed, what is forbidden, what is honorable, what is shameful. The Ark was the central point of the system for the Hebrews. It was physical proof that God was present and that the rules had real consequences. Today, this still happens, just in different forms. Think about social media. You can be canceled for breaking rules that are not even written anywhere. You make a post, thousands of people decide that is unacceptable, and within hours your life can change completely. You lose your job, lose friends, lose reputation. There is no court, no defense, no real appeal. The crowd decided and executed. Of course, nobody dies physically. But social punishment works on the same principle. There are invisible rules, and if you break them, the reaction is immediate and disproportionate. And most importantly, you never know exactly where the line is. Just as the Hebrews had to follow hundreds of ritual rules to approach the Ark, today we have to navigate hundreds of unwritten social rules to avoid being excluded. The Ark created a society of fear and obedience, but it was a specific type of fear. It was not the chaotic fear of a random attack. It was the organized fear of a system with clear consequences. If you follow the rules, you are safe. If you do not follow them, you will die. This seems cruel, but in practice, it creates a sense of control. You know what to do to survive. You may not like the rules, you may find them unfair, but at least they exist and are known. This is very different from living under constant threat, without knowing where the next blow will come from. The problem is when the rules are impossible to follow perfectly, and they were. The Levites who transported the Ark had to undergo complex purification rituals. They had to wear specific clothes. They had to maintain exact distances. They had to follow protocols involving dozens of steps. And if they made a mistake in any step, they died. This creates enormous psychological tension. You are constantly worried about not making a fatal error. Every movement is calculated. Every gesture is thought out. You live in a state of extreme attention all the time. This same tension exists today for anyone who works in high-pressure environments. Surgeons, pilots, air traffic controllers, nuclear plant operators. One small mistake can kill people. So you live with this permanent awareness that you can never completely relax. The difference is that these professionals chose their roles and received extensive training. The Levites did not choose. They were born into that tribe and inherited the responsibility. And their training was religious, not technical. They had to trust that the rituals worked, without understanding exactly why. But returning to the central question, why was the ark considered a deadly weapon? Because it killed. Simple as that. It is not a metaphor, not religious exaggeration. Within the biblical narrative, the ark caused the death of tens of thousands of people, more than many battles of the time. And it did this in various ways. Sometimes it burned. Sometimes it caused plagues. Sometimes it simply struck dead whoever touched it. It was unpredictable in form, but totally predictable in result. Disobeyed, died. And there was a political element to this that cannot be ignored. The ark was under exclusive control of the priestly caste. Only they knew the correct rituals. Only they could approach. This gave the priests immense power. They were the only intermediaries between the people and God. If you needed something divine, you had to go through them. If the king wanted to use the ark in war, he depended on them to transport it correctly. This created a balance of power. The king had the army, but the priests had the Arkansas, and the ark, according to belief, was more powerful than any army. There is an account where King David wanted to bring the ark to Jerusalem against the wishes of some priests. He tried to do it his way, using a cart instead of Levites carrying it on poles. It went wrong. Uzzah died. David had to back down and do it the right way. This shows that even the most powerful king could not simply ignore the rules of the Arkansas. It imposed limits on political power. And this is fascinating because today we seek exactly that. We want laws that limit the power of rulers. We want constitutions that not even the president can change alone. We want systems that punish even the powerful if they break the rules. The ark did this absolutely. Of course the system had flaws. It was based on fear, not genuine justice. The rules were arbitrary in many aspects. Why did touching the ark kill, but carrying it on poles was permitted? Why was looking inside a capital crime? There was no logical explanation. They were rules because they were rules. And when you have a system like that, where punishment is disproportionate to crime and there is no room for context or intention, you create terrible injustices. Uzzah tried to save the ark from falling and died for it. The men of Beth Shemesh looked out of curiosity, not malice, and were massacred. But the efficiency of the ark as a weapon did not depend on justice. It depended on fear and obedience. And in that it was perfect. For centuries, while it was in use, the ark kept the Hebrews united under a rigid set of rules and kept enemies terrified. It functioned exactly as designed. It was a weapon of population control, much more effective than any army could be. When the ark finally disappeared from history, probably destroyed or stolen when Jerusalem was conquered, Judaism had to reinvent itself. It needed to find new ways to maintain cohesion without that central object, and it succeeded through written law, oral tradition, decentralized synagogue. But it never again had that absolute power that the ark provided, because the ark was not just a symbol. It was a physical presence that killed. You could ignore a sacred book, could discuss a law, could question a prophet, but you could not ignore the Arkansas. It was their real, deadly, non-negotiable. The real lesson of the Ark of the Covenant is not about ancient religion. It is about how human control works in any era. You can control people through military force, but that requires constant armies and is expensive. You can control through laws, but they need to be enforced and there are always loopholes. Or you can control through a system that punishes automatically, without needing judgment or deliberation. A system where consequences are immediate, visible, and absolute. The Ark was that. And today we continue trying to create similar systems. Algorithms that ban automatically. Censors that fine automatically. Systems that punish without human interference. Because the less human the punishment is, the less room there is for mercy, context, or error. And for those who want control, that is the ideal.